Yeah, I like that. I think that we should update the zeitgeist. Okay, so now we're saying, well, last night me and my lady did the old 70 minus 1, if you know what I'm saying. But of course you know what I'm saying.
70 minus 1.
Iconoblast! We put the past on blast! Hit them with the truth, with things you never knew. Nobody is safe, no thing to place. Got Joel and Coop with history in your face. Iconoblast!
Time to say goodbye to the tower, dude.
I don't want to say goodbye to it. It's been so good to me so far. It's definitely getting old, but
it takes like an hour to start.
Yeah, that's why I always leave it on. That might be one of the issues that I'm having with it. But yeah, it's probably about time to
get it upgraded. Yeah,
I need to go through and clean it up because I've got like a 2 terabyte hard drive in that fucking thing, and it's almost full, and I have no idea what it's full of. I mean, there's probably a bunch of old. No, I keep that on an external
4K porn.
No, the porn that I have saved, I keep that on an external hard drive, so if I need to, I can grab it and run.
I had a
in case I get
G4 Mac tower. Old. This is like what, 2000? It was at the old Harrison house, and I got it from Andy, who like my first job.
I remember why you held on to it also.
Because of a porno.
Yep.
It was my favorite porn, and that thing barely ran, but I had it downloaded on there, and it was the only copy of it, and I can't find it online. This specific
Didn't you figure out who the actress was at some point?
Like 20 years later, after missing it.
Do you remember her name?
Something Dynamite. It's got dynamite in it.
Napoleon Dynamite.
Napoleon Dynamite, yeah. But yeah, I lugged that whole tower around just because once in a while I'd have to pull that old one up.
Yeah, I don't really
now I can find it.
I don't really save any porn to my computer because it's always just online.
Yeah, now it's...
So I don't see any reason for it.
Porn on laptops or anything, just on my phone.
For me...
In the shower.
It's primarily VR.
That's right.
You got to get yourself an Oculus Quest.
No way.
Got to get yourself an Oculus. Why not?
Because once it's the same. Like once I could watch porn on my phone, I never went back to anything else. It'll be the same. Then it'll be this. It's a whole thing every time.
You throw on a headset. It's not that much work.
Yeah, that's too much work for me.
It's a wireless headset. You can take it anywhere. It's not tethered to anything.
You can't see if people see you.
We both live alone.
True. I could lock myself in the bedroom or in the bathroom.
Why would you?
I have my rituals. I'm not going to do it. I'm not getting an Oculus.
Okay, I don't want to break traditions. I can understand that. Yeah. Which, by the way, our traditional opening, welcome to the Iconoblast podcast. This is the show that takes a look behind the public facades of famous icons to show you why you can never take anything at face value. My name is Cooper, and sitting across from me having a very pleasant discussion about masturbation habits is Joel R. Benner.
Hey, guys.
But seriously, Oculus Quest?
I got to try it.
You'd never go back to any other kind of porn.
That's
now,
too much. That's like equal. That's the equivalent of like going to a jerk-off room at a porn shop or something. It seems like it's too much for me. It's just crossing.
No, I feel like
there's a line in the sand that I've drawn.
No, I feel like it's the same amount of work
as like jerking off in public.
Well, yeah, if you do it in public.
It's too extreme.
If you're taking your Oculus to the local elementary school, you probably got some problems.
It's just how it feels to me. It feels like it's too much.
Just wait until you experience it for the first time.
I've jerked off in public.
No.
It's awesome, but I'm not going to do it again.
I'm talking about VR porn. Highly recommended for anybody who hasn't tried it. Pick up an Oculus Quest. $299. I bought mine a little over a year ago now.
You use it every day?
No, because it's.
You don't jerk off anymore?
It's too much work.
I want to wait as long as I can because then even new games, the PS3 to PS4 was, who cares? The PS5 graphics and the jumps aren't what they used to be. They used to be something.
Moore's Law is finally coming to an end, which Moore's Law is the claim that every so many years computer processing power doubles.
Yeah.
And that's finally slowing down, which I think we've discussed on the show before. The reason it's slowing down is because of quantum mechanics, which I think is really interesting because I'm a fucking nerd. But one of the reasons that it's slowing down is because in the microchips that they're making, so really at its most basic level, all of this shit is the same thing as what Alan Turing was working on back in the early 40s, where it's just a series of switches flipping off and on, but we've made the switches very, very, very small, and they're not analog anymore. They're digital, so it's like electrical impulses going through these very, very, very tiny little pieces of wire. And the problem that they're running into is if you make it too small, there's something called quantum tunneling where I'm not an expert on quantum mechanics, surprisingly, but I think it's electrons that they're sending through these little filaments. If you make it small enough, quantum tunneling, sometimes an electron will just jump from one spot to another. So when you make these processors super small,
mind manipulation, teleportation,
it actually is teleportation. It'll just show up from one spot to another, so it gives a false on-off signal. That's a really stupid way to explain it. I think I know what you mean. Smarter people out there that could explain it a lot better than me. But it'll jump from one switch. So if you're looking at it as a bunch of switches, that's like electricity,
right? How it jumps, whatever's closest to it, it'll jump to, and then once in a while you just see it go like jump to something. Because either too much power will make it change its course, or just random reasons.
Actually, yeah, that's pretty close to it, but much less predictable than that. Because we can't figure out why
does it?
They will quantum tunnel. Because by quantum tunneling, I mean it will literally be in one position 1 second, and then suddenly appear somewhere else.
And if you put it to scale, it's like a mile away that it jumps.
Oh yeah, if not more, because I think if you even look at the way these. So
it'd be like if you teleported from here to your house instantly for no reason.
It might actually be closer to if I teleported from here to like Jupiter for some reason, because of the scale that we're talking about. Because I mean, this is like tiny, 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 tiny little shit. So yeah, it would be like me sitting here 1 second, and then
instantly you're on Jupiter.
Instantly I'm on Jupiter.
We're gonna figure that out one day and have teleportation.
I've already figured out teleportation. If you drink enough, you wake up the next morning somewhere else.
That's time travel.
Oh, that's time travel and teleportation, because I have no memory of where I traveled. I don't know how to segue into the topic, but we already foreshadowed it last week. We're continuing the story of Thomas Midgley Jr., who I don't know if I should be surprised, but I was surprised that when I brought it up to Dan Holloway earlier on APP, he actually knew exactly who I was talking about.
Really?
Actually, no, I think I'm not surprised, because so far there's nothing that I've been able to bring up to Dan that he didn't already know something about.
When we recorded Get Fucked, right when we finished, the premiere started. And so I was there at his house waiting for my Uber, and it was on. And he was like, "Who is that?" And I said the name, and he was like, "Who?" So he must have, because we were doing an episode.
Sneaky boy.
He looked it up right then, so he knew. I don't think he knew until we did the show. I don't think he listened to our show, but I think he looked him up.
Oh, I doubt it. He's got way better things to do than to listen to this shit. But yeah,
what's his name? Macaulay Culkin Jr.?
Macaulay Culkin Jr. Rory Culkin. That's who we're talking about today. The good Culkin, in my opinion.
Midgley.
Thomas Midgley Jr. Midgley. So I'm sure that we're going to have some people that are popping into this episode that didn't listen to the last episode. So I'll do a quick little recap of what we talked about on the last episode, which was this guy, Thomas Midgley Jr. He was born in Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania, I believe it was.
Deadliest man.
He is the not just the deadliest man, the single deadliest organism in history.
That's a pretty cool trophy.
That is a major claim to fame. That is a huge claim to fame. Being the single deadliest, like verifiably the single deadliest organism in history. The organism, and I mean, is that a clear enough way to explain it? Because I'm not talking about like, okay, malaria has killed a shitload of people. I'm talking about a single individual that is responsible for more destruction to the environment and more dead bodies than anybody else.
Yeah.
Including Dan Holloway,
which is
fucking crazy. So he was born in Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania. I can't remember what school that he went to, but it doesn't really matter. He started working for, it was General Motors. See, I like having multiple episodes in the can, but this is the issue that I have when we don't record on a regular basis, is my memory is actually fucking terrible.
You worked for GM.
So yeah, I worked for General Motors. They were trying to solve the issue of
gas, right?
knocking. Yeah, so they were trying to fix knocking in old engines. That it came about once they switched from crank start engines to the like push button engines. I don't see that. This is how much of a fucking nerd I am. But I don't know anything about sports. I don't know anything about cars.
Yeah.
Don't know anything about women either. I'm a nerd. So
you know a lot about everything else, though.
I know,
and that counts for something.
I know a little bit about a handful of other things. Yeah, fuck. I am wasting a lot of my potential, I'm sure.
It's not about what you know.
I'm just joking.
It's about
There's
who
no
you know.
potential.
That's the saying.
It's not about what you know. It's about who you blow. If you're talking about like
It's talking about Amber Heard.
Yeah, which that didn't work out for her very well.
Not this time.
I'm sure she's regretting that.
Team Johnny, I'm having a mega pint.
Today. Oh, mega pint of hard AF seltzer.
Mm-hmm.
So Thomas Midgley Jr. was trying to solve the issue of knocking in engines. The engines were knocking because advancements in engine technology had increased the amount of pressure in the cylinders. When the fuel was put under a certain amount of pressure, it would spontaneously combust, and that would cause issues for the engine. The way that he solved the problem was by adding something called tetraethyl lead to the fuel, which did in
good old Ethel,
good old
Grandma Ethel.
He stuck Grandma Ethel in the gasoline, and it did solve the problem with knocking, but it also did an insane amount of damage to literally everything on the planet. So after he created tetraethyl lead,
people were knocking on heaven's door.
That's actually something that we're going to be talking about in this episode, is maybe trying to come up with a rough estimate of how many people are
actually dead because of him.
Yeah, actually dead because of him.
We talked about the other thing he made too.
The other thing that he made was he was part of the team that discovered chlorofluorocarbons, CFCs, also known as Freon, which is responsible for the hole in the ozone.
Okay, and that's gave a lot of people sunburns. How many sunburns does that cause?
I think that's more egregious than killing people, because I've had sunburns before. I have what is generally, I think the medical term is albino crybaby skin.
Yeah, that's it.
And if I get in the sun from the neck up and from my elbows down and from my knees down, that skin's okay if it's out in the sun for more than 5 minutes at a time. Past 5 minutes, I'm going to have an issue. Anything that's covered by my clothes, if I get out in the sun for even 2-3 minutes, I break out in a literal rash.
You fucking
natural
crybaby baby skin. What'd you call it?
Crybaby albino skin.
Yeah.
Or albino crybaby skin. I don't know. I'm not a doctor.
Have you ever fucked up and got a really bad sunburn?
Oh God, that's like you're describing my entire childhood.
Because I just remembered one time I passed out at the beach in the sun for hours, laying on my stomach.
Oof.
And I got this horrible sunburn on my back, and it was painful for a long time.
When I was growing up, I used to hate the summer. I loved being out of school, but I hated the summer because I knew that what summer entailed for me was a combination of horrible allergies and painful sunburns. I knew I was going to spend the majority of my time inside. I'm an inside boy. I'm sure most people can tell. But I knew I was going to spend the majority of my time inside because if I went outside, nature was going to fucking kill me. Yeah. I'm not supposed to be on this planet. Natural selection would have taken me out a long time ago if it weren't for modern innovations.
If we were like a tribal village or caveman, I think you would live too. Because you have a lot of skills, you can remember shit. So growing up would suck, but if you made it through growing up and you'd be picking berries with the girls while the men were hunting, but all the techniques that people would figure out, us as cavemen, me for example, one day I'd be like, oh, that means, hey, I did this thing and it worked, and I would forget within 5 minutes, but you would remember it. So then you would gain value over time and become the chief eventually.
That's what I'm hoping for in my current life is gaining value over time. But holy shit, I am depreciating like a new car. As soon as you drive me off the lot,
we should go 2 shows a week then before we run out of time.
I know, just start stacking them up and cash in on it for the time being. Yeah. Oh man, I don't think that I would have lasted long in an old hunter-gatherer. Well, no, I guess back then they would make the insane people like shaman and stuff like that. Be like, oh, that's
and if our primitive tribe couldn't remember past a day, and you could, you'd be a wizard in our eyes, right? Just because you'd be like, if you take that flint and hit it, it makes a fire. I would figure that out because I do all the manual work, but I would forget. It would happen on accident. I'd be, oh, and then you'd be like, And the next day I'd be like, why isn't this turning into a fire?
The next day I would be like, look what I discovered.
Yeah, and I'd be like,
I discovered that if you hit this with this, it makes a spark. Fire. That was all me. I did it myself.
And I'd be like, wow.
You'd be amazed.
Yeah, here, fuck my wife. Make more of you. We need you.
No, I still think natural selection would have taken me out a long time ago.
I 100% would be dead already because I had modern medicine save my life more than once. When I was 21, 22, I had my appendix removed because it burst inside me. That would have killed me.
You had an organ bursting inside of you? That wasn't the first time.
Well, busting inside me is different. But yeah, I had that, and then I also got the bladder cancer thing. And if I didn't have modern medicine, I think I might still be alive, but that would kill me probably in another year or two.
Eventually. The appendix thing, that would have
that was instant death.
Yeah, that would have been within a
day or two.
Is that fast? I thought it would take
could be
like
hours.
Holy shit!
I had stomach cramps because it was inflating or it was going through the process of about to be bursting. And I went to the doctor, and they were like, "Oh, your appendix is fucked. We have to get it out of you." And I was in the prep surgery room with like the 5 other people or 10 other people that were getting surgeries that day.
Pre-transition.
Yeah, that place. And it burst or it went to a next phase or something happened because I remember it. I wasn't scheduled for like 4 or 5 hours from there, and there was like 2 other people that were getting surgeries before me. And all of a sudden, all these alarms were going off, and I was like, "Oh fuck, someone in here's dying," and it was me.
Jesus Christ!
My temperature went from like 10.
It's about to cream pie this man.
Yeah, the alarm because everyone in there was old, so literally the alarms went off in the room, and I was like, "Oh fuck, one of these old people are dying." I really thought that. I was like, "Oh," because I was already
like, "All right, which
I
one
was
of these
on drugs.
Motherfuckers is about to kill over?"
I was in a bunch of pain, so I was kind of doped up. So I literally thought that. I remember it so clear. I was like the alarm beeping sounds and shit, and I was like, "Oh fuck, someone's gonna die." And I was waiting to see who it was, and then suddenly I was being pushed into the surgery room. It was me.
You're like, "Wait, hang on, I want to see who's gonna die out there."
It's me. Oh fuck! It was the alarm went off because my temperature drastically increased. It went from like whatever I was already at a high temperature, and then it was just like rising, and I guess that's a sign that it's time to cut that thing out.
It's definitely not good if it gets over a certain point. You're going to get brain damage.
I think that happened. That's what makes me the man I am today.
They didn't get to you quite in time.
Yeah.
All right, so at the beginning of the last episode, we mentioned J. Robert Oppenheimer.
Was that a gunshot?
Somebody? No, it sounded
Backfire.
like a car backfiring.
Oh, back real quick, wrap this up. Why I brought the sunburn up was because, have you seen the videos of people with severe sunburns when they peel off like huge chunks of skin?
Oh, you're literally describing every summer when I was growing up. When I would get sunburns, I would just break out in horrible blisters, and then I would spend like the next week just
peeling them off,
laying in some position where it's not rubbing up against anything. And
what's the biggest piece of skin you peeled off? My back piece. I had my brother Fallon peel it off my back like this. It was like this. He was rubbing it like this with his fingers, like all 4 fingers, and then could grab it as a whole with 2 hands and started peeling it off, and then it ripped off, and it was like this big, I think 3 inches by 8 inches.
I think probably about the size of a piece of printer paper.
Holy
would be the
shit.
biggest piece. But
Did you keep it? Do you still have it?
Well, yeah, obviously.
I would frame
I'm
something
hoping
like
it'll
that
go
now.
in the Smithsonian someday.
If I knew what I knew then, I would keep that shit, because that's weird.
Yeah, I never appreciated those things when I was a kid. I was just so immersed in it all the time, it didn't seem special.
Did you eat your scabs?
No, not scabs. Never eat boogers either.
I never ate boogers, but I would eat scabs.
I had a best friend when I was growing up. His name was Cody. I'm not going to... Well, there are so many people named Cody from my hometown that I could...
They were all Cody, and they were all related.
Yeah. Large portion of them, honestly. Friend of mine named, like my best friend when I was growing up, this kid named Cody, loved to eat his boogers.
Ugh.
And even when I was a kid...
I never get that. Why would you ever even want to?
I would ask him the same thing. I was like, why the fuck are you eating your boogers? He's like, oh, no, I'm not. He would just flat out deny that he was eating his boogers. And it was literally right after I saw... How do you even get into that habit? Like, when was the first time you pulled out a big snotty booger out of your nose,
caveman shit,
and thought, "Oh, hey, I'm going to eat this"?
Yeah, see, that's another natural selection situation where those people should have been naturally killed. If you eat your boogers,
well, you got
other problems.
They probably would have had a higher chance of survival because they're recycling materials.
True, it's self-sustaining.
It's like people who like drink and pee.
Sustainable,
like Bear Grylls.
Yeah.
You're a self-sustaining system.
There was this girl in my class in really young grade. It was back when your desk had a shelf in it, and you put your shit inside the desk. It didn't lift up. It was already built in, like a little desk underneath the desk.
Oh, so when you were like 17, 18, something like that?
No. But we had a nickname for her. I wish I could remember it. But it had to do with boogers because I never saw her eat a booger, ever. But if you looked in her desk, inside it, because in the desk, it's like the top is wood, underneath is made of like metal.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like wrapped,
Yeah.
And then there's a little spot for your pencils that's got like a little indent in the metal where you can put stuff so the pencils don't roll. She had a pile of boogers in there. Like 8 little boogers, like in a little thing in the corner.
What, after one day?
No, all the time. It was always there.
She kept restocking it?
Yeah. Like I think she would pick her nose and keep all her boogers in her desk. And I remember I saw it, everyone saw it, and she had a booger nickname, and I can't remember it.
Was she like a child from the Great Depression where you just hold on to shit because you never know when you're going to need it?
She had crooked ass teeth, and she was blonde. That's all I remember.
Oh, I was going to say
and she always wore dresses.
If you didn't throw in the blonde part, but everything else checks out. I was going to say I thought you were referring to me in elementary school.
Back on topic.
I don't understand.
So speaking of sunburns, ozone layer caused it.
Speaking of boogers, Thomas Midgley Jr.
breathed in fucking mercury and got mercury poisoning.
Lead poisoning.
Lead
poisoning. At the beginning of the last episode, we mentioned J. Robert Oppenheimer and his team at Los Alamos that developed the atomic bomb. Ironically, one of the scientists responsible for creating the most destructive weapon in history helped save humanity from the dangers of leaded gasoline. His name was Claire Cameron Patterson, and Claire is a fucking girl's name.
Any relation to Ross Patterson?
Oh shit! It might be.
That'd be cool.
No, considering how masculine Ross is, I doubt that there's anybody in his entire lineage that has a girl's name.
Good point.
Because Claire's a fucking girl's name.
Yeah.
Claire Patterson was a chemic. I hate reading off of this computer screen. I wasn't able to print out the notes today because
if you're watching on YouTube, this is the first show ever in the history of our shows that you are reading the show off of a laptop.
Holy shit, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
He's
I know
old school and he prints it off of paper.
Well, I like feeling like a news anchor, and I always need something to fidget with. Mm-hmm. So the papers give me something to fidget with.
That's why you have your hand on your cock now.
It's got to go somewhere. Mm-hmm. And that's where it goes if I don't have anything else in my hands. Why do you think I use this vape all the time?
My lady says that I stroke my own shaft while I sleep all the time.
Okay, it's another little tangent, but I remember you bringing that up to me after you came back from a trip to visit her, and you were like, hey, anytime, it was back when we were living together, you were like, hey, when you come out here, am I like rubbing my dick in my sleep? I'm like, I don't look that close when I'm walking by.
Apparently I do it all the time.
All the time?
Yeah, apparently it's like...
How is it that I've known you for 20 years now and I've never seen that?
It's like under the blanket usually, but my hand is always on my dick, and I guess even in my sleep I'm kind of moving my hand a little bit. Like there's movement.
That's my secret. I never stop masturbating.
That's what makes me so happy and healthy.
Okay, so the hand on the junk thing, I've seen that before while you were sleeping, but never stroking the shaft.
Okay.
It was always just like a security thing. It's like snuggling a teddy bear, because I think
it's like a teddy bear.
About the size of a teddy bear.
Well, all hairy.
Well, it's hairy, and it's got 4 appendages, too, which is strange.
Yeah. Well, 2. It's called balls.
What?
I know, you don't have them. Well, one of them.
Wait, you're supposed to have those?
There's 2. Not the one
2.
weird thing you have.
I have 2 testicles now.
No, you don't.
Yeah, I do. You want to feel them?
Yeah, I want to see them. Prove it. I'll show mine right now.
One of them's very, very small.
One's an ovary.
No, it's not inside me anymore.
That doesn't mean...
Do you think that anybody with an ovary is going to have a voice like this or a mustache like this?
I think that's compensation. It's natural compensation.
The one ball that ended up in the right spot is just overcompensating.
Yeah, it's working in overtime.
I mean, overcompensating is kind of the story of my life. And sunburns. So Claire Patterson was a chemist who worked on the Manhattan Project, refining uranium-238 into weapons-grade uranium-235.
Weapons-grade, yeah.
Once the bomb was finished, Patterson's experience with mass spectrometer... I got to make this text bigger.
Can't see it.
Christ, I am getting so fucking old.
You just need new glasses.
The reason I need new glasses is because I'm getting fucking old.
Yeah, but those glasses have gotten old.
Oh, dude, these things are beat to shit now.
And they make you...
I'm surprised
it makes your eyes go bad faster if you don't have proper prescription, Coop.
Fuck, that's a good point. Well, that's a reason for everybody to go ahead and share the podcast.
Yeah.
With
subscribe,
all of your
rate,
friends.
and review.
Subscribe, rate,
if you're
review.
In the chat right now, do a super chat. If everybody pitches in $5, Coop get new glasses.
If everybody listening to the podcast right now pitches 50 cents, I'd be able to get a really nice pair of sunglasses, a nice pair of eyeglasses.
You need them.
Probably get my teeth fixed too, because those are still fucked.
No, let's not go that far.
Yeah, that's...
You get the glasses and I get the rest of the money.
Okay, that's fair enough. So Claire Patterson was a chemist who worked on the Manhattan Project, refining uranium-238 into weapons-grade uranium-235.
Uranium-235.
Once the bomb was finished, Patterson's experience with mass spectrometers led to him being selected for a much less deadly project, which was determining the age of the Earth. The best way to do this is by checking the clock of Mother Nature herself, also known as nuclear decay. Mm. I had a hard time getting through this part of writing the episode because I went down a rabbit hole researching all this shit about nuclear decay.
Nuclear weapons.
And it's, well, no, I mean specifically...
maker?
No, it's you can definitely cook shit with it. I don't think you could freeze anything.
Oh
with it.
yeah. It's a Wadahita. Yeah.
It's
It's a Wadahita. Yeah.
Did you know there is a naturally occurring nuclear reactor that's been around for like millions of years?
Oh.
I think it's either in Africa or South America, one of those places that people that look like me don't really go. We'll send money there, but
how's there a natural nuclear reactor? What do you mean?
so I don't fully understand the science behind it, but there is a deposit that I think has some form of uranium. It's some sort of, I think it's a fissile material
Fissile.
that
I don't know what
acts
that means.
as it's literally a natural nuclear reactor. Well, one of the benefits of having a computer in front of me is I can actually look it up.
Is it underground?
Partially.
So if you walk to it, do you get radiation?
Oh, holy shit. No, this thing is fucking 2 billion years old. A 2 billion year old natural nuclear reactor. It's in Western Africa. So 17 natural nuclear fission reactors operated in what is today known as Gabon, Gabon, in Western Africa. The energy produced by these nuclear reactors was modest. The average power output was about 100 kilowatts, which would power about 1,000 light bulbs. As a comparison, commercial pressurized boiling water reactor nuclear power plants produce 1,000 megawatts. Doesn't produce 1.21 gigawatts, though.
You could have like 5 houses powered off it.
5 houses if each house had like 200 light bulbs in them.
Yeah.
So I won't get into reading through how the natural nuclear reactor works, but yeah, look up natural nuclear reactor.
It's a real thing.
I thought it was fascinating.
What's frizzer?
Fissile?
Yeah, fissile.
I don't know enough about it to actually explain what it means.
Is it a metal?
There's fission.
fabric?
No, there's fission and there's fusion. So I think fission is when everything's going away from each other, and fusion is when you're combining shit.
Fusion's like energy, right?
They both
Like
produce
a charge
energy.
or a ball of
They both
electricity?
produce energy, but in different ways. But
And cold fusion, what's that?
cold fusion is a myth.
Okay.
So stay away from here, Val Kilmer. Don't steal our cold fusion secrets. I'm talking about The Saint, which is the best Val Kilmer film.
Is it?
Yeah, unquestionably, I think that
Top Gun's close.
Oh no, Top Gun is like maybe fourth
Kiss
or
Bang
fifth
Bang?
place. Yeah, Kiss Bang Bang is number 2.
What about Bad Lieutenant? What about MacGruber?
Not on the list.
MacGruber?
Was he in MacGruber?
He's the villain. He's the main villain in MacGruber.
Oh, okay, so that would mean
So
that
that's number 1.
The Saint is number 2. Nuclear materials decay at such a consistent rate that by tracking the frequency of the atoms being radiated, engineers have created clocks that are now used to track the Universal Time Code, or UTC. Every single country on the planet uses the UTC to set their clocks, meaning every day of our life is regulated by these decaying nuclear materials. Nuclear clocks are actually so accurate that they have to continually have leap seconds added to it. Well, I mean, not continually, but they have to add leap seconds to the clock to account for the fact that the rotation of the Earth is slowing, but it slows by like 1 microsecond per year. But these clocks are so accurate that they actually have to continually
Adjust.
account for that.
Well, is that... Wait, why? How does it fuck it up?
Because
why does the rotation have an effect on that?
Because what we're trying to track is we're trying to track the time of day, not the total number of seconds that have passed. We're trying to get synced up on what time of day it is.
So the time of day is slowly changing.
Yeah, they have to
always.
account for the Earth slowing down.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
I thought it was going to be some more of this crazy time bullshit and mass and size affecting, like how satellites slowly go off time.
they do have to account for that also, and that has more to do with the speed of the satellites and the distance that they are from the Earth because the more gravity there is, the slower time passes, and then the faster you're going, the slower time passes. So for GPS
I thought
satellites,
it was the faster you go, the faster time passes.
I think it slows down for you because it's all relative. It's a whole theory of relativity thing.
I thought if you had a super fast ship, super fast, you could leave for 5 minutes, and when you came back, it'd be 5 minutes for you, but it'd be like 25 years for Earth.
Yeah, because of the relativity, it would be.
So time is speeding up for everything else around you.
Even the distance that you are from Earth, so technically the top of your head is aging faster than your feet.
Right.
At a very, very minute scale. But
you don't age any less. Like if you leave Earth, you're just going to get old like anybody else.
There's still, that's the whole relative time thing. So even though it's only 5 minutes for you and it's, 5 years for people on Earth, you still aged 5 minutes. There's no way to stop the passage of time for yourself. It's relative to other objects.
Yeah.
But it's similar to, if you're standing on the side of a freeway and a car goes by, it looks like, they're going 60, 70 miles an hour. If you're on the freeway, the car is going to be keeping pace with you. So that's the whole relativity thing. Explained in a very, very poor manner. But it
makes no sense, but it does. Time.
It makes no sense. But
I have no sense of time either, though. Like in general.
I concentrate on it way too much. I feel like time is continually getting faster as I get older.
I think that's normal.
I think it's I've heard it explained where when you're 10 years old, 1 year is 10% of your life. Yeah,
when you're 40,
exactly.
it's 1 year is.
I can't
4% of your life.
It's
5%.
Yeah, well,
a lesser percent.
I don't want to confuse all the listeners with a whole bunch of complicated math, so I know what the answer is, and I know how the
when you're 100
works.
years old, a year is 1% of your life.
When
you're 10, it's 10%.
We'll dumb it down for the listeners because we fully understand it. We can do
there's
the
a ratio in between there. You can get into it, but it's just boring.
But it's a history podcast. It's not a math podcast. Mm-hmm. So uranium-238 is a naturally occurring nuclear material that eventually decays into an element known as lead-206. The time it takes for uranium to decay into lead is well known, so by comparing the ratio of uranium to lead in really, really, really old rocks, they call them primordial rocks, but I thought that sounded stupid.
Primordial rocks.
I think really, really, really old rocks is what they should call them instead.
Yeah.
So by comparing the ratio of uranium to lead in these old rocks, scientists are able to determine the age of the Earth. And also they can extrapolate that into the age of the solar system. That's how we...
I have a rock in my backpack that's millions of years old.
Is it? What kind is it?
It's I don't know.
How do you know it's millions of years old?
I don't...
Well, I think
I'm assuming
that most rocks are...
It was from Europe.
Pretty old, I think. Well, if you ever find yourself some zircon, then you'll know you have a very, very, very old piece of rock. So to calibrate the instruments that he was using, Patterson tested them with zircon. Zircon crystals naturally form with pockets of uranium-238 inside of them, so any lead found inside the zircon is the result of nuclear decay. Patterson's partner, George Tilton, tested the instruments using uranium, and Tilton's measurements were normal. Patterson's measurements, however, were not. So we're talking about this guy trying to trying to determine the age of the Earth by measuring the amount of uranium-238 that had decayed into lead-206 inside these zircon crystals. When they tested the instrument, these mass spectrometers, when they were, they were using mass spectrometers. When they were testing them with uranium, all the measurements came out as expected, but when Patterson tested the instruments with zircon, there was more lead, and he didn't know why. Patterson's measurements of the zircon came back with levels of lead many times higher than expected. No matter how many times he tested the zircon, there was always more lead than there should have been. This began a quest for answers that would send Patterson traipsing across the globe sort of like Indiana Jones, but with pocket protectors instead of a whip. And he literally did travel across the world performing different experiments to try and figure out where the fuck all this lead was coming from. One of the first places Patterson looked was the ocean. If the lead had always been around without anyone noticing, the concentration would be roughly the same regardless of the depth. If it was coming from human activity, on the other hand, the concentration would be greater near the surface. The test results showed the levels of lead near the surface were up to 20 times higher than they were at greater depths. And they tested water all the way down to like 4 kilometers to figure out where the highest concentration of lead was. Next, Patterson decided to dig up some old corpses and play with their bones in the name of science, which I'm sure we all have at some point in our lives. Smelting and other human activities have increased the amount of lead in the environment to varying degrees over the course of history. This lead inevitably finds its way into the bodies of humans where it settles into their bones. By testing the bones, scientists can determine how much lead a person was exposed to over the course of their life. And if you look at this on a
Richter scale?
On a Richter scale, well, close. It's a line graph.
Yeah.
If you look at it on a line graph, you can actually see when all of the great civilizations throughout history rose and fell, because whenever there was a major civilization present, the amount of lead in people's bones goes up drastically.
Why is that?
Because of smelting and things like that. It's a naturally occurring element that people use for
Everything?
a lot of different things.
Like leaded fuel?
Yeah, like leaded fuel. That's what made it so the ancient Egyptians had so much lead in their bodies, was they were making leaded gasoline, which doesn't make any sense because they didn't even have any fucking cars. They were using Flintstone cars.
It was for
then.
lights.
Oh, for the
big torch balls.
Yeah,
and all those canals and stuff that people say that was water, that was all cool firewalls and stuff. Like the aqueducts that they would make back then.
I think it was the Romans that did the aqueducts, not the Egyptians. The Egyptians made the firewalls. And
how did they live in the
light
desert
bulbs.
then, without water?
Our modern diets are so fucked up that we have to drink water all the time. If we just went back to, like these paleo diets that are getting popular, nobody would have to drink water anymore. It's a fact. Look it up.
I don't drink water.
Yeah, I've noticed that you have over the years. I drink hard AF seltzer.
If you're gonna drink water,
make sure it has alcohol in it.
Make sure it has alcohol in it, and do it on a ghost bed.
On a ghost bed. So anyway, as everybody knows, we love Ghost Bed. They've been a loyal sponsor of the Drinking Bros
and they use lead in their bed, right?
No lead. In their
lead-free beds?
They have unleaded beds. They don't even use lead in their weighted blankets. Ghost Bed has been a loyal sponsor of the Drinking Bros for over 69 months, and everyone here at the studio raves about them.
70 minus 1 months.
For over 70 minus 1 months. They have super comfortable mattresses that last forever, and they're made right here in the USA. Every mattress has a 20-year warranty. Some even have 25-year warranties. And you can try it out for 101 nights. If you don't like it, just send it back. No hard feelings. One of our favorite parts about Ghost Bed is that each mattress has cooling technology in it. So if you get hot at night like we do here in Texas, these things are a lifesaver. Ghost Bed also offers bundles so you can get everything you need, and you don't even really have to think about it. Just choose from their 4 mattresses and then pick your bundle. So whether you just need a mattress and a frame, or you want it all, like their cooling pillows and sheets, you can always get the best bang for your buck.
You get the bang for your buck, you get the buck for your bang. Ghost Bed.
I think I like that better than Sleep So Good It's Scary.
No, that was horrible.
Right now, Ghost Bed is offering 40% off. I hate reading off the computer. It throws me out. I'm so used to reading.
You're blowing it right now. We're going to lose the sponsor.
And for the whole network, which is going to really fuck things up.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Yeah, I'm used to fucking things up at this point. Ghost Bed is offering 40% off Ghost Bed bundles where you get a mattress and adjustable base, or you can get 30% off of everything when you use the code DRINKINBROS at ghostbed.com/DRINKINBROS. You can buy a mattress for around $35 per month, and they have no money down, 0% financing plans for up to 60 months. So go check it out at ghostbed.com/drinking bros. Ghostbed. Sleep so good, it's scary.
It's a bang for your buck, a buck for the bang. Ghost bed. Was that what I said? I can't remember.
That's what we're going to have to listen back to the recording. We'll clip
it's
that.
A bang for your buck, for a buck you can bang in a ghost bed.
We're going to have to send that to the big wigs over at Ghost Bed.
Yeah, and then it's like a drawing of the bed goes, and then a hooker just goes, lands in the bed.
Ghost Bed.
A bang to buck, a buck to bang. I lost it.
You can't catch lightning in a bottle.
No,
unfortunately.
But you can record it and
you can record it. Yeah, and that is a $1 million idea. Someday
$1 million jingle.
I'm going to be able to say I knew him back when. So according to Patterson's estimates, the concentration of lead in the bones of a 1950s human should be roughly 100 times higher than that of ancient corpses. I think he was taking bones from Peru or something like that. I don't remember exactly where, but
bones from Peru. Sounds like a novel that I wouldn't read.
Sounds like some sort of young adult fiction or some shit.
Yeah.
It's like the
Bones from Peru. It's about a guy who killed his wife and buried her.
Well, I was going to say that it's like a continuation of the Twilight Saga, except now it's about mummies and zombies instead of vampires and werewolves.
Yeah, and voodoo doctors.
And the mummies are obviously the bad guys because they're the upper class. They were able to afford being mummified, whereas the zombies, they just got chucked in the ground. As nature intended.
In the last episode of Get Fucked that we just did, we watched Ace Ventura 2.
Oh, you did?
Which is apparently Dan's favorite movie. He thinks it's one of the best comedies of all time. And I watched it from a new perspective, and it actually is. It's funnier than the first. It's so dumb, but what I realize is it's literally nonstop. You're laughing the whole time, even if you're like, that was dumb. It's just joke after joke after joke. Every 10 seconds there's a joke. But there's something that they did that like in Peru, when I was in Peru, speaking of Bones from Peru, that weird gay book you read.
No, that I'm in the process of writing.
They told us if you run into any actual people that live in the jungle, like actual local tribal people, they have these long spears that they will throw at you. If you turn your back on them, they'll spear you as a joke. Like they'll hit you with it.
I killed you, funny. Loser.
And in Ace Ventura, they do that to him. When he's leaving, they shoot him with the fucking dart. And they all laugh.
Shit, that's right. They also, it was Eddie...
Shikaka.
Eddie something.
The little kid?
Yeah, the guy throws a spear into each one of his legs. Yeah.
That guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's his name? Who is he?
It's Eddie. Was
he like a?
He was a comic, and he was also on In Living Color, which Jim Carrey got his start on.
Yeah.
Pretty much. I fucking loved In Living Color. And
so, which tribe would you be a part of, the Wachutu or the Wachati?
I would most likely be part of the Wachutu.
Okay. Do you think if you were born in the Wachati tribe, you'd get banned or raped or killed, and if you got lucky and survived, you would make your way to the Wachutu, and they would take you as their own?
I think that I could be born in a fucking Amish or Mormon community, and the same things would happen.
You've had a great life.
That's just the hand that I've been dealt in life.
You've had a great life.
No, I've
better than most. To be honest.
Better than a large percentage of the currently living population and the previously living population, which is good to keep things in perspective.
In perspective, yeah. It's all about perspective in the end.
It's all about relativity. Well, no, relativity would make it... relativity would still make it better.
Relativity?
Relative to something else. I compare myself
to... Like banging
to...
your relatives? Is that what you mean?
Also a part of my life. In terms of relative to, let's say a starving orphan in Africa or a Syrian refugee. Yeah. What?
Well, sorry.
What was that response?
I was just in California.
And it's filled with Syrian refugees?
Well, speaking of Syria, I talked to Ray, our boy.
No way.
Yeah. I remembered it and everything, and
Holy shit, how's he doing?
He's great, dude. As soon as I walked in, he was stalking in the back. Ray is our fucking our go-to liquor store guy. There's a lot of tangents in this episode. I'm sorry, everyone, but we would go there every day.
Yeah,
you and I. And,
like every morning. And by morning, I mean early afternoon.
I came in and I was like, "Please, Ray, be here," because when I was first talking to Kveta, or in the Czech Spice, name dropped on accident. We told him about her, and he knew words in Czech and stuff because he dated a Czech girl like 40 years ago.
Oh shit, that's right.
Do you remember that? Yeah. So
yeah.
I went in there. He said he recognized me from the back of my head and was like, "No, what is he here?" Because I have a shitty like half mohawk thing, and he came up and was like, "Oh, Joel, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, Ray, what's up? Don't you remember me?" And we hugged, and then he was like, "How's Cooper? How's Texas?" He remembered everything, and we ended up talking for like 20 minutes. And he was like, "Oh, this is the Czech girl," and he spoke to her in Czech, and they were able to. He knew basic stuff. It had been 40 years, so he was off a bit, but they were able to talk to each other in Czech, and I told him that because the last we talked to Ray was 2 years ago when we first moved here, and he knew about our adventure at becoming podcasters.
Yeah,
and he called you the Golden Throat.
Yeah, he was the one
said,
that
he said it again. He was like, "How's the Golden Throat?"
Started calling me the Golden Throat. He was also extremely encouraging with everything, saying
he told her the story how he used to do commercials and mess with audio and stuff and all that, and he was happy to hear that we succeeded. Because he was like, "I didn't think you would. I thought that..." He said, "Coop will be fine."
He's like, "No way, it worked."
Coop will be fine, but I didn't think it would work for you. I was like, "Well, no, I'm just ride the coattails, you know."
No, we both know that's not the case.
But he was really happy to hear that we were still going at it. He says he misses us. He said he was going to text you that he saw me.
He messaged me on Facebook like a couple months after we moved here.
To check in. That's so cool.
To check in, and I messaged him back, but I haven't heard from him since.
Yeah. No, he looked exactly the same, and it was good. That's all.
Okay, so I'll do a little recap. This guy, Patterson, was trying to figure out the age of the Earth by measuring the amount of
lead in the ocean.
So
the
that's how it
Aztecs
started
had
off,
a lot of lead.
And then the Aztecs had a lot of lead, and the Egyptians drove Flintstone cars, and that brings us to this point in the story.
Sorry for the tangents.
So, according to Patterson's estimates, the concentration of lead in the bones of 1950s humans should be roughly 100 times higher than that of ancient corpses. Upon testing, however, he found the concentration of lead in a 1950s body wasn't 100 times higher. It was over 1,000 times higher.
And where was this?
This was when he was comparing the amount of lead in contemporary bone, like corpses from his time period, comparing the amount of lead in their bones to the amount of lead in, I think it was, like I said, I think it was Peruvian bones, roughly like 1,500-year-old bones.
And it was way more.
It was supposed to be 100 times higher, according to his estimates, and it turned out to be over 1,000 times higher. So something was definitely going on during this period, which we know about, looking back after the fact, but he had nobody knew where all of this excess lead was coming from.
What was it coming from? What do we know?
It was coming from old Thomas Midgley Jr. Patterson knew that the ungodly amounts of lead people were being exposed to was a disaster waiting to happen. If he could find the approximate time that the lead levels began to increase, he could compare that to changes in industrial practices. So the next destination on his adventure for answers was the frozen landscapes of Greenland and Antarctica.
Holy shit! This is like a fucking a detective movie.
He was literally
there's a mass murderer accidentally killing the entire planet, and then there's a detective following the trail,
traveling across the world to figure out
who's doing this,
who done it.
And it's our boy Tommy Jr.
Tommy Jr. Tommy Jr. is the one responsible. Claire Patterson was the detective in this situation.
Yeah, that's cool.
By taking core samples of the oldest ice on the planet, Patterson could determine when the increase in atmospheric lead levels had begun. It was similar to measuring the level of lead in the oceans, except it's a whole bunch of water that wasn't moving because it was frozen. So it kind of gives you a timeline of history if you take a core sample. The deeper down you go, the older
The ices?
The ices, yeah. It works the same way with
Like a tree. Right? Like the
some
the lines in the, what's it called? The lines in the tree?
the rings on a tree can
Yeah.
determine the age. It's similar to that. So everything is stratified in the ice. It works the same way with like
Killed the
with
dinosaurs.
rocks and
The
shit.
Ice Age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It works the same way with rocks, where
Deeper
that's
you
how-
go, the older.
Yeah, the deeper you go, generally the older it is, unless it's in an area with a whole lot of volcanic activity. So by taking core samples of the oldest ice on the planet, Patterson could determine when the increase in atmospheric lead levels had begun.
And it was the year that fucking Tommy Jr. was born.
Samples taken from so at this point he had been researching this for like 15 years at this point.
Fuck.
Started in the roughly in the 50s when he first noticed the increased lead levels, and by the time he actually tracked down the source, it was like 1965. And he literally, Claire Patterson literally spent the rest of his life working on this.
That's crazy. What? Why was he so obsessed about it?
Because
They were paying him to be?
No, this was a personal vendetta because he knew what this could mean for humanity, like humans as a species.
He's a fucking superhero.
Yeah. Claire Patterson is for sure the hero of our story.
Whoa.
Our villain is Thomas Midgley Jr. and Claire Patterson is the hero of this story.
This is cool.
Samples taken from Greenland in 1964 and Antarctica in 1965 showed that the concentration of lead in the environment had spiked roughly in the 1940s. They steadily rose from there. The timeline coincided perfectly with the widespread use of tetraethyl lead in gasoline. So he had to figure out when the lead levels started to spike, and then he had to figure out what happened during that time in history. Mm-hmm. Which this guy was a fucking detective.
Yeah.
Claire Patterson spent the rest of his life drawing attention to the dangers of lead being introduced to the environment from industrial sources. Along with fighting for the removal of TEL from gasoline, he raised awareness about the dangers of lead solder used in sealed canned foods. That was one of the other things that he found was increasing the level of lead in people's bodies, was they were literally using lead to seal like Campbell's soup cans and shit.
Yeah.
That's also one of the reasons that one of the proposed reasons that the Franklin expedition ended up getting real fucked up when they were looking for the Northwest Passage, which future episode, by the way, about the HMS Erebus, HMS Terror.
George Franklin?
Yes.
Benjamin Franklin?
He has one of the best titles I've ever heard. Captain Sir John Franklin.
Captain Sir.
Captain Sir John Franklin. It sounds
S-U-R?
No, sir, like he was knighted.
Oh,
So he was a captain,
Captain
but he was
Sir
also a
John.
knight. So his full title was Captain Sir John Franklin. I think it was John Franklin. Captain Sir Franklin. So Claire Patterson spent the rest of his life drawing attention to the dangers of lead. His battle to save humanity from a dumb and angry existence earned him enemies throughout the scientific and industrial community.
Sir Captain
He
John.
was Captain Sir. The captain comes first.
Sir
John Franklin.
Franklin. We're doing an episode on him?
Yeah, I want to do an episode about the Franklin expedition because I read a historic
Is he a
fiction
pirate?
book. No. No, he's like the exact opposite. Which, by the way, there's a show on HBO Max. I think it's called Our Flag Means Death. It's my new favorite pirate show.
Really? I get HBO Max for free now. It comes with my phone plan.
It is produced and Taika Waititi, the guy who did Jojo Rabbit, he also directed Thor Ragnarok, a bunch of other shit.
Thor Ragnarok was great.
He plays Blackbeard in it, and he's also one of the producers. I'm sure
Nice.
that he
He's
helped
probably helped
write a bunch of
the
the shit
scenes
too.
and shit.
For the first like 2 or 3 episodes, I was a little bored, and then as soon as he shows up as Blackbeard, that one single episode, I was just like, oh my god, I see what he's doing with this, and it's fucking brilliant.
Okay. What's it called?
I believe it's
Flag?
called Our Flag
Spam.
Means Death. It's a pirate comedy about Stede Bonnet and
It's a
Blackbeard.
comedy?
Yeah, it's a good
Shit.
comedy.
Okay. Oh, that makes sense. Ragnarok was hilarious.
Yeah, and Taika Waititi, I think that's how you pronounce his name. He's a little more woke than I would prefer, but holy shit, he's a fucking genius. Cool. Like in terms of storytelling and his performance.
Jojo Rabbit was pretty.
Jojo Rabbit
that's
was
ballsy
amazing.
to make a movie like that.
Oh yeah,
right? So that's
the crazy thing.
I guess that's woke.
He's
in a way.
doing the same thing with Our Flag Means Death. He's making Blackbeard a relatable character, or is he? I haven't finished the season yet. And that's what's got me locked in. Is I was like,
what's going to happen?
Oh, holy shit!
You care to know what's going to happen? Okay,
Blackbeard's so cool. He's this bloodthirsty pirate, but he doesn't want to be a bloodthirsty pirate. And then there's these little things where it's like, oh wait, shit! Is he just a full blown sociopath that's manipulating everyone? He's acting weak this 1 second, and then in the next scene he's acting strong. And then you can't tell, like
Captain Jack Sparrow in a way.
It's to a much more extreme level, because you can't even tell. I still don't know if
they should get fucking Johnny Depp to be in the next season of fucking this pirate movie.
He's back on the market. Cleared his name. Justice for Johnny. Team Johnny.
Mm-hmm. A mega pint.
Oh yeah. Would you mind handing me a mega pint of
Amber.
that hard AF over
no
there?
Boo boo.
Nope. Amber. No poo-poo. So it wasn't until the mid to late 1970s that people finally began to take Patterson's warnings seriously. And like I was saying just a minute ago, when Claire Patterson, thank you, Hard AF Seltzer. When Claire Patterson first started to point this out, that tetraethyl lead was literally blanketing the entire planet with lead, he got like ostracized from a bunch of different scientific communities. One of his biggest competitors was a guy that was working for, I think he was working for Standard Oil. And obviously Standard Oil was making a shitload of money off of, I'm pretty sure it's Standard Oil, was making a shitload of money off of this at the time.
Yeah.
So it's not surprising that their lead scientist that they hired to look into this and counteract Patterson's claims was like, oh no, it's a bunch of bullshit. Tetraethyl lead's perfectly safe. Totally safe. Perfectly safe, perfectly healthy.
It's grandma ethyl juice.
Yeah, grandma ethyl juice is good for everybody. But finally, around the 1970s, people began to take his warnings seriously. And starting in 1975, the United States mandated the use of unleaded gasoline in certain vehicles, and by 1986, leaded gasoline had been phased out entirely. I know we're jumping ahead of the Thomas Midgley Jr. timeline, but I wanted to wrap up Claire Patterson's story and also point out the amount of damage that Thomas Midgley Jr. inadvertently did.
Yeah.
So due to Patterson's efforts, the concentration of lead in the average American's bloodstream dropped by up to 80% by the 1990s. That means that from 1986 to the early 90s, just by phasing out tetraethyl lead in gasoline and by removing lead soldering from cans, the average level of lead in a person's bloodstream dropped by 80%. So there was obviously a major influence from all this shit being pumped into the atmosphere and just eaten straight out of a soup can.
It's the exhaust, right?
Yeah. It's literally just pumping particulated lead into the atmosphere that people are inhaling. It's getting into the water. It's blanketing everything. It's like living in the Dust Bowl if the Dust Bowl was just blowing around a whole shitload of lead.
So fucked up.
So this is the part where we're going to give you an idea of just how damaging lead actually is and what the effects of Thomas Midgley Jr.'s discovery of putting tetraethyl lead into gasoline led to. Lead. Studies show that exposure to lead causes a significant decrease in mental capacity and an increase in violent or antisocial tendencies. Put simply, it makes you stupid, angry, and violent.
He created introverts.
He created the original social media. Makes you stupid, angry, and violent. Children are especially vulnerable to the effects of lead exposure, making even the tiniest amount detrimental to their mental development. Which, holy shit, that's like social media also.
Yeah.
In the 1960s...
Made a lot of intelligent, retardant children.
It made a lot of keeping up with the Kardashian fans. In the 1960s, the CDC stated that the acceptable level of lead in a child's blood was 60 micrograms per deciliter. As more studies were conducted, that level continued to be reduced further and further, and as of 2022, 3.5 micrograms per deciliter is considered the highest acceptable level. But
It
even
used to be
amounts,
60?
it used to be 60.
Because there was just so much. Oh God.
That's something that
It's like saying cigarettes are good for you.
say, oh yeah, number one recommended brand of cigarettes by doctors, because literally everybody is smoking. So what else are you going to compare it to?
Yeah.
Like literally everybody is getting minor amounts of lead poisoning. So yeah, it must be fine. Everybody's got this much lead in their blood. Even amounts as small as 3.5 micrograms per deciliter is going to negatively affect a child's brain, like to a surprising degree. Lead is so goddamn dangerous. It's insane.
Fuck.
So there's literally no amount of lead that is safe for the human body. A study in 2022 determined that, okay, now we're getting into the stuff that really fucked up my head when I was reading about this and got me really excited about the topic. A study in 2022 determined that over half of the U.S. population has been exposed to high levels of lead during their early childhood. Anyone born between 1951 and 1980 was exposed to even greater levels of lead and affected significantly more than modern generations. The vast majority of lead exposure between the 50s and the 80s can be attributed to leaded gasoline and its inventor, Thomas Midgley Jr. and General Motors, because they were pushing.
So our parents are fucking stupid.
Oh, wait, it gets even better. It gets even better. Estimates show that in aggregate, humanity lost 824,097,690 IQ points due to brain damage caused by leaded gasoline.
Holy shit.
Thomas Midgley Jr. caused us to lose almost 1
entire
billion
generation
combined
of intelligence.
IQ points. And that's from when it was first released up until now, because there's still residual effects from it.
Yeah, those kids, those people all had kids.
Oh yeah. And also there's...
And here we are.
Yeah, we are the generation created by the generation.
We made it just out of it, right? Because it ended in 1980? The severe?
1986. No, we're
in it.
Yeah, we're on the tail.
We're
end.
retarded.
Not as bad as the
we're
people.
Intelligent. Intelligently retardant.
Intelligently retardant.
Fuck.
The addition of tetraethyl lead to gas made the global population over 800 million IQ points dumber.
That's insane.
Which is probably
Where was the lead? Was it just
almost
in America?
as bad as social media.
Or the whole world used it?
It was exported all over the place. There are some areas where
it's not just America that got dummied.
It was like literally
Mostly America?
the entire developed world.
Okay, so we all, at
So
least the
anywhere-
whole world got hit a little bit.
Anywhere where they didn't have a whole lot of cars, so like when the places where they're still driving around in Flintstone cars, they didn't have any issues. But they're also driving around in Flintstone cars, so they're not exactly on the cutting edge of technology.
Are there any countries that weren't affected by it, and that because everywhere else slowed down, they caught up? India.
No, India would have been affected by it also, because India was
Ethiopia.
Ethiopia, maybe not. I wouldn't say that they
Japan.
were caught up though. Well, Japan's always been ahead of us in terms of technology.
Lead, and a little nuclear, a little lead, a little this,
Maybe
little
we
that.
need to send some more leaded gasoline over to Japan and China, and at this point,
don't talk
India
about that.
also, just so
Don't
we can
talk
catch
about
up a little bit. They're like the 3 smartest countries on the planet.
Yeah, but you don't want to hurt them for that.
Well, yeah,
We can
because
ill
because
afford another Clendathu, Coop.
We can ill afford another Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
We can ill afford another leaded gasoline. We can ill afford another Tommy Jr.
Okay, we can ill afford another Tommy Jr. This guy did. Okay, I'm going to get back into the notes because
We're going to find out that COVID did the same thing.
Yeah, I think that
It made us
that
all. It's phase 2 of Tommy Jr.'s.
less emotionally intelligent for sure. Kids are having developmental issues in terms of emotional intelligence because they haven't been exposed to
2 years of not being exposed.
As much.
That's a big deal
personal
when you're
human
6.
interaction.
That's 20% of your life. We just talked about the percentage.
Yeah,
of
and
lives.
also having half of a person's face covered by a mask for
Ever?
40% of your life
That's weird.
is going to make you have some developmental issues in terms of relating to other people, because
And
I
also
think it's
might
like
make you better at becoming a ninja, though.
so it all balances out.
Yeah, we
in
might
the
get
end.
some cool fucking ninjas out of this.
We'll get some sweet ass fucking ninjas out of
Yeah.
this. So literally the entire world currently is stupider because of Thomas Midgley Jr.
That's
We
so
are stupider
insane.
than we could be. We're stupider than we should be because of Thomas Midgley Jr. and General Motors and Standard Oil.
Yeah. And who knows the effects of that? That's like beyond being able to like analyze, right?
I can give
Because
you
we're dumber, we
I can
could-
give you a rough idea of the directly measurable effects, but
We got more violent, more wars, more bullshit.
what I really want to know
technology
is
slowed down.
I want to know what major innovations we missed out on, because the little kid that would have grown up to be the next Albert Einstein is suddenly a moron because he's got a shitload of lead in his brain, or her brain. Those of you in our audience old enough to remember when telephones had cords will also remember the crime waves of the 70s and 80s.
We should play the song Mongoloid at the end of this episode, even if it gets us demonetized.
I think we're going to be fine with that. Our sponsors aren't going to care. Between the 1950s and the 1990s, the U.S. experienced a massive surge in violent crimes that gradually decreased after 1996. A little weird how that coincides with this timeline. The U.S. wasn't the only country to experience this phenomenon. Literally every major country in the world saw a spike in violence during this particular 40-year period. I'm sure at this point you know who we can thank for that.
Hillary Clinton.
Goddamn Clintons. And Obama. Thanks, Obama.
Hillary and the super predators.
That's the super predators comment is pretty much a direct result of leaded gasoline.
Yes.
The crime. So even think Predator 2. The whole like crime wave that I know it wasn't supposed to take place during. It was supposed to be in what, 1997, the far off future of 1997. But like the whole reputation that New York got for being this insanely violent, fucked up city was because of the crime wave that was caused by leaded gasoline.
Holy shit.
So by comparing the average level of lead in the blood of children with the amount of violent crimes per 100,000 people, we find an unsurprising connection. When charted on a graph, the line representing the blood lead levels matches the line representing violent crimes, offset by 20 years. So 20 years after these kids were in like preschool, they turned into insane violent criminals that started this crime wave that lasted for nearly 40 years. The children born during the heyday of leaded gasoline grew up to be the criminals during the heyday of violent crime.
Began using lead as a weapon. Bullets.
People being less intelligent, a 40-year increase in violent crime, and the boomer generation that inhaled so much lead they tanked the post-World War II economy were all heavily influenced by Thomas Midgley Jr. That's something else. You got to think that the boomer generation, they were growing up right around this time that the atmosphere was just filthy with lead.
Yeah.
It was just chock-a-block with lead at that point. So
anyone in a big city was completely fucked, basically.
Yeah, big cities would have been worse, and even in the countryside, you're going to get some sort of exposure from it because it's in the air.
Fucking hell.
The damage caused by the widespread use of leaded gasoline is incalculable, and humanity is still recovering from its effects. So consider this. How many deaths can be traced back to a murder committed by someone made violent by lead exposure? How many deaths can be attributed to financial difficulties caused by economic decisions made by lead-addled brains? How many life-saving inventions have we missed out on due to the global loss of intelligence? The effect of this is so fucking and I'm only talking about the societal effects. Like, there's environmental damage that has been caused by this, but I mean, who gives a fuck about that? The environment doesn't make, my PlayStation.
Is there lead in PlayStations?
I mean, there might be. I'm not really sure.
What's the saying when you shoot somebody with bullets? Like, fill them full of lead.
Fill them full of lead.
It has a whole
Thomas Midgley Jr. filled the entire world with lead.
Yeah.
And
there's a new meaning now, that quote.
I do want to put a large amount of the blame on General Motors and Standard Oil as well, because
for letting it happen.
Thomas Midgley Jr. was trying to fix a problem. Those companies were just trying to make money. They knew, to some degree, they had to have known what the risks are. But they kept claiming that
That's a big mistake, though.
Huge fucking mistake. It led to a literal 40-year crime wave. 40 years of increased crime. Everybody on the planet is dumber.
And now there's children talent shows.
And now we have...
What's her name? Baby Bop or whatever?
Honey Boo Boo?
Boo Boo, yeah.
God, we're getting old. That show's been off the air for a while now, but I couldn't think of any other reference.
Yeah.
We have TikTok now.
TikTok and Honey Boo Boo.
TikTok is a direct result of Thomas Midgley Jr. inventing leaded gasoline and General Motors and Standard Oil promoting it.
Do you remember the commercials?
Now we're all idiots.
The baby diapers that had the little baby face on it that was real? I saw that. I mean, it was like it was a diaper commercial or a toilet paper commercial or something, and it was like it was a sun and it had the baby face on it. It was like, and it was like baby diapers. When you see the logo,
sure you're not
it's
thinking of
super
Teletubbies?
I'll look it up while you continue.
Okay, so we went over the speculative, well, not speculative, we went over the effects of what leaded gasoline did to humanity, which again, how many deaths can be traced back to a murder that was caused by somebody becoming more violent because of lead? How many deaths can be attributed to the...
It's the Teletubby Sun Baby.
It's a Teletubby Sun Baby? Yeah, I figured it was.
But look, that's her, and she had a baby.
Holy shit, and she got fat.
Would you?
I mean, yeah.
She's not that. She just had a kid.
I ain't got high standards. Shit. So again, I'm trying to drive the point home. How many murders are a result of people becoming more violent due to lead? The part that I couldn't find anyone really mentioning in the research that I was doing is how many deaths were the result of poor financial decisions made because of the lower IQs as a result of lead-addled brains. And also, how many inventions are we missing out on because everybody's dumber? Now, consider chlorofluorocarbons and the damage they have caused to the environment. Remember, he also invented Freon.
Refrigerators.
CFCs literally punched a hole in the natural layer of the stratosphere that keeps us safe from looking like a cast member of the Jersey Shore. How much damage has been done to the environment due to the increased UV radiation that is able to reach the Earth?
This fucking guy.
A portion of global warming is undoubtedly attributed to him.
To the ozone layer.
There's no question that the invention of Freon has affected the environment in some way, regardless of where you fall on the scale of your beliefs in global warming. It is unquestionable that the invention of Freon has affected the environment to one degree or another. How much it has been affected, I don't think can actually be determined.
Yeah.
But it has definitely been affected.
Negatively
affected. But Karma eventually caught up to Thomas Midgley Jr., and at the age of 51, he contracted polio. And this is the part of the story that I didn't want anybody spoiling or looking up in advance, because this is poetic right here. The disease ravaged his body, leaving him bedridden and almost completely paralyzed. Even in this condition, he was able to conceive one final invention. But this time it was just for him.
Oh. He made a mech.
Midgley devised an elaborate... Actually, kind of close.
Really?
I mean, yeah, not super close, but he invented something to help him move. Midgley devised an elaborate system of pulleys and ropes to help him move without human assistance. On November 2nd, 1944, his contraption collapsed as he attempted to use it to lift himself out of bed, causing the rope to wrap around his neck, strangling him to death. The last victim to die during his lifetime as a result of one of his inventions was Thomas Midgley Jr. himself.
Holy shit.
Albeit unintentionally, Midgley contributed to more death and suffering than any other single human in history. No other living creature has ever come close to having as much of a negative influence on not only humanity, but nature itself.
Fucking hell.
Thomas Midgley Jr. was literally the single most destructive organism to ever walk the face of the earth.
Jesus Christ. He even killed himself.
That ending...
He was born to kill.
He was born to accidentally kill things.
Yeah. And even CPAP couldn't stop him.
It's fucking...
Yeah.
It's fucking crazy that his final invention was what ended up killing him. At least it only killed him, though. The very last thing that he
Did anyone else
invented in
use
his
this?
life...
Have they been? Do they use it
No,
now?
because they looked at it and they were like, "Oh, holy shit, that's a bad idea." Just like
I'm
anything
just
else that he
imagining
invented.
like a Pee-wee's Playhouse style invention, because he makes his
it's got a
like
it's got
the
a
egg,
face
the breakfast
and it
machine.
talks to him.
Like the breakfast machine, it cracks the egg and.
Oh,
Was that Pee-wee?
I think they had that in Pee-wee's Playhouse. That's based off of Rube Goldberg, who was known for
making weird shit like that.
Overly, I think he only did it in cartoons, but yeah, it was overly contraptions to do a very simple task.
Yeah, that's how I picture this device that would help him out of bed.
Thomas Midgley Jr. is what you would get if you combined Joseph Mengele with Rube Goldberg.
So how many people you think, just your guess, are dead because of him? Killed, murdered, sick, dying, retardant, intelligence retardant, all mixed together. What's the number?
The total number of people that he's affected?
Killed.
Oh, that he's killed. The
Yeah.
total number of people that I think you could trace, total number of dead people that I think that you could trace back to him, easily in the hundreds of millions. Which, to put in perspective, the reason I was making the references to Robert Oppenheimer, the Manhattan Project,
Yeah.
at most that killed about 260,000 people, which is still a shitload of people.
Yeah.
Thomas Midgley Jr. accidentally killed hundreds of millions of people.
Millions of people, and probably a lot of other living organisms affected by lead.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, who knows what... I mean, there's really no
Plants,
way to
vegetables,
quantify...
dogs, even.
Yeah, like...
Caterpillars.
Think
what about the
the
caterpillars that ate lead?
well, they don't live all that long, so I don't think that it had that
It doesn't
much.
make a difference.
You know what? Actually, I think it does, because of the whole butterfly effect, the chaos theory, like Jeff Goldblum likes to talk about in Jurassic Park. Butterfly flapping its wings in Central Park can create a tsunami on the other side of the world because of all these tiny little changes going on.
Those butterflies were delivering lead.
And because of Thomas Midgley Jr., he created a bunch of butterflies that had lead poisoning and went insane. And we could probably blame the tidal wave that caused the Fukushima meltdown on Thomas Midgley Jr. also.
Yeah. Well, and just think about butterflies in general. Before 1980s, butterflies were like birds. They would fly to a spot and land. Now they're just like, and they fly all over the place. They're fucking dumb.
So the way that you see flies trying to, like, a fly can get in through a small crack in a window but can't get out through the same fucking crack.
Yeah.
You can thank Thomas Midgley Jr.
Lead
for that.
poisoning.
The popularity of TikTok videos, you can blame Thomas Midgley Jr. for that. Our podcasts, you can blame Thomas Midgley Jr. Well, you can thank him. Thomas Midgley Jr. for that.
Yeah.
But
That's crazy.
Speaking of our podcast, that is it for this episode of the Iconoblast podcast.
Right.
And I do want to encourage everyone to actually sit and think about that for a minute. Think about the topic of the show for a minute. And imagine how widespread his influence was. How much damage could he have possibly done by creating leaded gasoline and Freon?
Hundreds of millions killed, but just
I think it has to be hundreds of millions that died as a result.
And how many affected? Everyone.
Literally,
the planet.
Literally everyone.
Negatively.
Yeah.
He negatively affected everyone.
The entire world. I can't think of
even
anybody
now.
else.
Yeah.
Even now.
If I have a kid, there's a good chance that kid will be intelligently disabled.
Well, I think that would be the case regardless of Thomas Midgley Jr., but that's
a
genetic
worse
thing.
chance. It's a worse
chance.
Is higher. The genetic chance is already there. Now I also have lead poisoning.
I would just blame it all on the lead poisoning.
Yeah.
Literally blame everything on Thomas Midgley Jr. Well, no, he was trying to do something good.
Maybe we wouldn't
blame
have
it on
Biggie
General
and Tupac.
Motors. Oh, shit.
You do get good things out of violence.
You know what? Hip-hop in general might not exist without him. No, I'm being somewhat serious because hip-hop was like initially
gangster rap.
Invented during a blackout in New York in the 1970s. That blackout could have been caused by somebody who had a lead-addled brain.
Yeah.
And
what does this button do? I can't remember today for some reason.
And the crime wave that those initial rap artists grew up during that so heavily influenced their music was a result of Thomas Midgley. Holy shit. Thomas Midgley Jr. invented rap.
Yeah. California love. That was Tommy J, dude.
Oh shit! I wish I would have thought of that sooner. I would have somehow incorporated it.
We could have gone into a rabbit
hole.
hole.
It's because I mean, think about all the good things that came out of him fucking up the world.
Yeah, I mean, black metal too. Then that was around the same time.
Holy shit! You're right.
Yeah, all those kids were all jacked up on lead, and they were like,
heavy metal in the first place wouldn't have come about if it weren't for Black Sabbath, and those guys were definitely born during the heyday of lead poisoning. Oh yeah,
that's lead poisoning.
Yeah, listen to how Ozzy Osbourne talks. Has nothing to do with drugs.
No, that's
all from lead poisoning. The influences that this fucking guy had on the world are.
It's impossible to narrow it down.
Yeah,
but it's also it's limitless of how he could have affected things.
Yeah,
he really could have caused rap, like gangster rap. And
I'm saying it right here. Thomas Midgley Jr. invented rap. If it weren't for Thomas Midgley Jr., we would not have Tupac. We wouldn't have Biggie. We wouldn't have Snoop Dogg.
Dre. Eazy-E.
Wouldn't have Puff Daddy. We wouldn't have Mace.
Old Dirty Bastard.
Wouldn't have Old Dirty Bastard. The entire Wu-Tang Clan.
Wu-Tang Clan. No, but the best one of all.
Vanilla Ice.
Vanilla Ice.
Greatest rapper of all time.
What's his name? Too Short.
Too Short.
That dude was born with lead poisoning, for sure. I love him. One of my favorite rappers.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us once again. If you are in the YouTube live chat and you have not hit the like button yet, what the fuck is wrong with you? Do you have lead poisoning?
Donate $5 to Coop. so you can get new glasses.
Yes, please get me some new glasses because these things are going to fall apart at some point. I don't know what I'm going to do once these actually finally break.
Yeah. Click the super chat button and pay $5 for Coop's glasses. I will get that money from fucking Ari, whoever it is. We'll get the money, get the super chat money, and we'll buy your glasses with it.
And maybe some drugs. Well, we have to
Whatever's
spend...
left over, I get, and I'm going to spend it on booze.
Scotty,
we're going to drink with Scotty, who's going to be here in a couple weeks.
I promise that we're going to get as many drugs as we can. Alcohol's a drug. That counts.
True.
We will get as many drugs as we can with the super chat money that you've been giving us.
Yes.
None of that is going to go towards anything productive. I promise you.
Except for the glasses. Come on.
Well, no, I'm talking about
Scotty would like it if a little bit of his cash went to your glasses, I think.
Okay, maybe a little. Well,
tell us what you think.
Yeah,
if it's only for booze, it'll only be for booze.
That is a guarantee.
Yeah.
Regardless of what people want us to spend the money on, because most likely it's going to go towards booze.
Exactly.
Jack Mandeville just walked in.
Oh, yeah.
All right, well, we're wrapping up this episode anyway, so follow us on Instagram at Iconoblast Podcast. You can follow me at Coop Nukem. You can follow Joel at Joel R. Benner. Also follow the Drinking Bros History channel. Check out the Friday Night Jack Sesh, which is a Patreon exclusive. You got to go to the Drinking Bros Patreon to get access to that.
Yep.
But yeah, we'll see everybody next week. Next week is going to be Mayhem Part 2.
I've been busy, so you might want to write something else just in case.
Okay.
But I'll try to get it done.
I think I got another episode that's close enough to being ready to go.
We should finish Christopher Columbus sometime.
Oh God, that's like saying we should finish Julius Caesar at some point. That's like probably another 6 episodes for Columbus and like another 20 for Caesar.
Infinity for Caesar.
Yeah. All right. See you all next week. This has been the Iconoblast Podcast. My name is Matt Cooper. That's Joel Benner, and we're reminding you to never take anything at face value.
Ever.